Hello everyone, thank you for watching today's video. Please like, share, and check out the author in the description. And with that, let's begin. Chapter 38, Reactions and Visitor. Izuku Became. To think my brother has been in Germany the entire time. Soon I was knocked out of my thoughts by my classmates who were asking if I was okay. I don't know. I've just found my missing brother who has been living in Germany this entire time safe, I said to everyone. At least you know where he is at now and that he is alive. One person said, and I could only agree. I decided to go find my parents and see how they were doing. I soon found them in a lobby in the dorm area. Hey Dad, Mom, how are you doing? I asked them and they just said they were sorting through their emotions and had asked how I was doing. Same, sorting through my emotions, I said to them. Oh my Puff, it seems that our son has created an entirely new life for himself. Though I really would like to meet his new father, though I doubt they would agree to spend much time with us, I said with sorrow in my voice. Indeed, we knew that he would likely have an entirely new life outside of us. We hardly raised him anyway, so it's not surprising that he doesn't see us as his family. He loathes the fact that he shares our blood. Inko said, I just wish he would give us a chance to reconnect though. Izumi commented with some tears in her eyes. I just wish we could try to make up for everything we did to him, she said while crying. Inko and I could only hug her and promise that we could only try to reconnect and it would be his decision. We can only attempt and keep attempting whenever we have the chance to show that we've changed and are wanting to be in his life again, I told her. Izuku Became. The guys and I arrived home after leaving school. I had called for an escort from Titan since I wasn't in the mood to wait for the normal car with my 2 guards in it. Luke and Kyle just kept their tails out for me and kept them wrapped around my waist and a tail from each of them in my hands to help me keep grounded since my emotions are still going crazy. I've kept myself from falling into a panic attack or an episode of going back in my memories or dark thoughts until after I got out of the room. Then I started to slowly fall apart, but they kept me from falling any further by keeping me grounded. Soon the Titan escort came and there were several guards armed. They asked if I was alright since I normally don't use the escort request on my phone, but I didn't answer them as I got in. Though I could hear Leon respond. He'll be fine for now. We need to return to the Titan Tower ASAP. Also, alert Hisashi that he needs to be waiting for us to return. He may also want the Titan therapist that Izuku talks to on hand and ready. We just met Izuku's biological family and Hisashi needs to be ready to deal with the fallout, Leon said. The guards just stiffened at the mention of my past and got to work. They went straight to no funny business attitudes and one called into the base to have my dad alerted. After about 30 minutes later, we arrived at the Titan Tower. Luke and Kyle just helped me walk inside since I was just playing with their tails for the most part now. I just didn't feel like talking currently and just kept myself grounded the best I could. We arrived in the living room and Dad was there waiting. He just hugged me the moment I walked out of the elevator. Daddy, I cried out with tears coming down my face. I could feel my legs start to weaken as he picked me up like I was a little kid again and walked over to the couch. It's going to be alright, my son. It's going to be alright. I'm here and not going anywhere, Dad said. I just cried into his shoulder as Luke and Kyle explained everything that happened and what they could sense in my emotion. I was so thankful for the soulmate marks in moments like this since they could help my dad know how I'm doing. Dad suggested that once I calmed down I should talk to the therapist so I could get everything off my chest and asked if I wanted anyone in the room with me. I wanted him, Kyle, and Luke with me since they needed to be there so they knew how to better handle me in the future in the event I relapse with my mental state, which is becoming clearer that it's possible with current events. Hisashi Became. Soon, we got Izuku to calm down and he fell asleep for a bit. I'm afraid that he will relapse into his former mental state that he hid back then. This time we have the soulmate marks to learn the true feelings that he has, but still, it will be bad if he relapses. The therapist was afraid he could have attempted to take his life back then if he fell any further or even start to cut, but luckily I met him before that happened. God, I hate the Yagas and those Bakugo twins. Why the hell did they have to show up at the school? I can't blame Vincent either since he didn't know Izuku was from Japan or who his former family was. Soon, I received a notice from the front desk that someone was requesting to meet with me and was sent with the approval of Principal Vincent. I asked who it was and I was a bit shocked and pissed. Why would someone from that family be sent by Vincent? He wouldn't send them easily, I thought. I told the front desk to let them in the elevator and send them up to floor 30, which was the business floors, and had the board of directors meeting room on it. Gran Torino Pav. I arrived at the location that Principal Vincent gave me and I got to say it's such a damn big building. I could see why no one would get in near the kid and his family without a fight. I've noticed a shit ton of guards around the block of this building. As I walked in I noticed more guards and then the front desk. I walked up to it and talked to the lady at it. Hello, I'm here to see Hisashi Midoriya please, I asked. They asked for my name and the reason. I'm Gran Tornio, otherwise known as Sorahiko Torino, who is the adoptive father of All Might Akata Shinori Yagi. I'm here to talk about Izuku Midoriya. and would like to meet Hisashi Midoriya first before anything else, I said. The moment I mentioned the word Yagi, the guards in the room went on alert and had their hands on their sidearms. Well, it's a good thing I won't ever walk in here with the idiots, I thought. The lady at the desk looked at me and looked like she wasn't going to call up. I've also been approved to come here by Principal Vincent. He's the one that told me how to find this place and to ask for Hisashi Midoriya, I stated, and the lady seemed to relax a bit and then called up. After about 3 minutes, she ended the call and directed me towards an elevator and swiped her hand across a scanner and pressed a button to floor 30. You will find a person waiting for you who will show you to a meeting room where he will come meet you, she said before she closed the doors and the elevator started to move. Soon I arrived on the floor and was escorted to a board meeting room. Nice room, I said, thinking no one was here. Thank you. Now start talking and explain why I shouldn't kill you and hide the fact that I had you killed, a voice said behind me. I turned around and met a man. Hisashi Midoriya, I'm assuming, I asked, and he confirmed. Hero name is Gran Torino but real name Sorahiko Torino. I'm the adoptive father of All Might, who is your son's stupid biological father. The reason I'm here is that I never knew about Izuku and would like a chance to 1. Meet him, and 2. Get to know about him, and 3. Thank you for taking care of him as your own child. I could tell from his voice when he did mention you that he held a lot of love for you, I stated, and he seemed to relax when I called Izuku his son and not the Yagas. He was also happy when I didn't mention anything about Izuku reconnecting with the Yagas, which I could understand. Okay, I won't kill you. I do have information that my agents gathered that does prove you never did know about Izuku, so since you've been truthful and haven't said a lie or talked about trying to force Izuku to reconnect with them, I'm willing to talk about Izuku and possibly let him know about you wanting to meet him, Hisashi said. This is a good start. So, what exactly would you like to know? Hisashi asked me. I first asked about how he met Izuku. That's a funny story. It was on the night he ran away. He went to the beach, he cleaned and wanted to look at it before he found a place to sleep at night. I was being attacked by a villain that got the jump on me when I didn't have my guards with me. Izuku rushed in and saved me, and it was at that moment he activated his quirk, which made him have a panic attack, and he revealed he had run away from an abusive situation. He had collapsed, and I just had my guards grab him so I could figure out what to do with him. I thought about adopting him at that moment since my deceased wife wanted to adopt another child when she was alive, and I felt it was meant to be that he and I would meet like that. As such, I threw him on my private Titan plane and we arrived in Germany, where he would wake up several days later. We talked about his past, where he told me everything that happened and who his family was. I decided to offer him a chance at a new life and he accepted. Since then, we grew as father and son, Hisashi said. This was interesting and knowledge that I wanted to know. What is his quirk? From what I could find, it's some sort of energy quirk, I asked, and was told it was called Solar Stockpile. Izuku also had 2 other quirks. One is an energy manipulation and the other is due to his soulmate marks. What are the soulmate marks? Izuku said something about fiancés at the school and him marrying them this year. I asked, a bit confused. Oh, they figured out a date, it seems. I'll have to ask later since they've been deciding for a while now. The marks are due to Luke's and Kyle's quirks. They activated when Izuku touched them for the first time, and it marked him as their missing piece, the soulmate. It did some changes to his body that allows him to bear their children only, which made Izuku happy that he can have his own children. There's some other things as well. Hisashi explained all of the details of the marks. That's interesting and new to me. However, as long as Izuku is happy with the relationship, who are we to complain? I said as I shrugged my shoulders. Soon we talked about more of Izuku's life and we're coming to an end. That's most of it. There are things I'm probably forgetting off the top of my mind, but that's a good overview of his life, Hisashi said. Then he offered me something. Do you want me to see if Izuku is willing to meet you today? He asked. I would like to see him for a few moments. I want to formally introduce myself and then I'll leave. I'll leave the decision if he wants further communication with me up to him after I introduce myself. I also don't want to throw a large number of new things on him, I said. Soon Hisashi took me to an elevator that was different from the one I came in on. He scanned his hand and we went upstairs to a living room. I could see the boys and Izuku sitting on the couch. The boys noticed me and stiffened until Hisashi raised his hands. Izuku, I want to introduce you to someone. You saw them at the school earlier. I've already talked to him and I know he doesn't have any ill intent from what I've gathered. He just wants to meet you for a few minutes before he leaves. He will leave any future discussion between you two at your discretion, Hisashi said as he was leaning down in front of Izuku. Izuku looked up and met his father's eyes and then looked at me. I waved at him a bit before he looked at his father, who just shakes his head up and down. Izuku then said yes, that he would meet, but he wanted Hisashi and the others to stay. That's fine. I don't have anything to hide from them, I said from the elevator doorway. I moved down to the couch in front of Izuku and sat down. Hello, Izuku. My hero name is Gran Torino and my real name is Sorahiko Torino. I'm the idiot Toshinori adoptive father, meaning I'm your grandfather, I said, and could tell he tensed at that. I'm not here to tell you to reconnect with them if that is what you're thinking, I said quickly, which confused him. I'm just here to meet you since I've never known about you until they told me you were missing. I just wanted to come to meet you and introduce myself. Your father, Hisashi, has told me a lot about your life and your soulmates. I'm thankful for him finding you that day, or as he said, you finding him, I said with a bit of a laugh, which caused Izuku to smile a bit and laugh at that comment. I just wanted you to know about me and to let you know that I would like to be in your life if you would let me. However, that is at your discretion. You are a hero, so therefore you are old enough to make that decision. If you want me in your life, I will be. If you don't want me, then I will stay out of it and keep anything between us as professional as I can, I said. It took Izuku a few minutes of thinking before he answered. Izuku Puff. Dad wouldn't have let him up here easily. I know I can trust Dad no matter what, and I have Luke, Kyle, Seth, and Leon if something ever happens. Sorahiko also was never talked about in front of me, so I'm believing in his words. Dad most likely also looked into him when he looked into my past, and without a doubt wouldn't let him up here if he had his doubts about him. I want to attempt to let him in. I looked over to my friends, Dad, and my fiancés. I then looked back at my grandfather. It's weird to have someone to call that. I would like to meet you more and attempt at having you in my life as my grandfather, I said, and he lit up like a Christmas tree at that. I think this might work, I thought while feeling happy at having a possible new family member. Could you tell me about yourself? I asked him, and he was shocked that I wanted him to stay and talk. I'm kind of surprised with myself also. Third Pav. Soon, the family sat down with Gran Torino and talked for about 2 hours. I think it's time for me to return to school. It's getting late. However, here is my number so you can get a hold of me, and we will see each other at school since you will be helping out, Gran Torino said as he got up. Izuku hugged him, and everyone was a bit shocked at his willingness to open up to him. I'm a bit shocked by how easily I let you in myself. However, I think it's different from my past mental state with how closed off I was since I have been. I know I can fall back on this time, Izuku said as he said goodbye to Gran Torino before leaving to get food to eat dinner. Gran Torino and Hisashi walked to the elevator and went down to the lobby. Seems I forgot to mention his mental state. Almost forgot about that since he mentioned it. I want to make something clear though. Anything you and me talked about, are you with Izuku and the boys, stays here. You aren't allowed to talk to anyone else about what was said, understood? Hisashi asked. I understand and had no plans of telling them what was talked about. I won't hide. I talked to you all, but I won't talk about what was said, Gran Torino said. Hisashi then talked about Izuku's mental state when Hisashi had found him in the months after. He wasn't in a good place mentally when I found him. He had just come from an abusive household and family. The only thing he knew was negative emotions and that people would harm him. He opened up to me quickly since I offered him a home and to adopt him. Soon he also opened to the boys, but was slow on romantic feelings and connecting with Luke and Kyle because of the marks. He wanted to ensure they wanted him for himself and not just because of the marks. It all worked out in the end, but his past really screwed his mental state up, Hayashi said with some rage laced in his tone. He still suffers some problems, and him meeting his past has made it worse. If you ever notice him playing with the boys' tails, it's because it's a grounding method that Izuku just used without anyone noticing. It's not always him grounding himself since he just loves their fur and tails to begin with anyway. However, if Luke and Kyle just offer their tails out of random without Izuku asking for them or motioning for them, then the boys are giving it to him to have Izuku ground himself, Hisashi said. Gran Torino Pav. I noticed that happen a few times at the school, I said. Hisashi then explained that it was most likely Izuku grounding himself, and the boys could feel via the soulmate mark that he needed their tails because he was falling into his memories and emotion. We soon arrived at the main floor. Hisashi then talked about how the therapist was concerned that if Hisashi didn't find Izuku when he did, then Izuku would have lost his mental battle and he wouldn't be with us anymore. I trust the words of the therapist since he's been working with Titan for a long time. Izuku still suffers the effects of the trauma the Yagas, the Bakugos, and the others in his past put him through. Just please try to keep them apart and calm when you can. If they pressure him in trying to reconnect or call him their son a lot, then Izuku might snap at them or fall back into his old mental state, Hisashi warned. I was pissed at the amount of damage that was caused. It always seems lighter when you hear everything as words, but heavier when you see the end result. I thought, I'll do what I can and try to ensure they don't push their luck. I know they want to reconnect, and I will warn them that it's all up to Izuku and not them. If he reconnects, that will be his decision alone. I'll also correct them whenever they call him son since he hasn't been their son since the age of 4, I stated as I turned to leave the building. Hisashi had given me his number so I could contact him in the future for anything. As such, I made my way back to the school in a Titan escort since Hisashi wanted me to take one since Izuku had let me into his life. Chapter 39. Gran Torino returns to FHAE in classes. Third Pav. As Gran Torino was walking up the path towards the dorms, he could only think back on what Hisashi said about Izuku's mental state when he was younger. Damn it, Toshinori, you guys really screwed up far worse than you can imagine. he thought. Soon he walked into the building and was noticed by the students and staff from UA. Gran Torino, where have you been? You've been gone for hours, asked All Might. Gran Torino just looked at them all and grunted before he spoke. I went and talked to my grandson and spent time with him. Where else would I be? He stated. Everyone was silent. Why? Why didn't you tell us? Green Tornado asked with a shaky voice. We wanted to see our so she was about to say son, but Gran Torino cut her off. He's not your son. He hasn't been your son since he was 4 years old. Also, why would I tell you? I needed to speak to Hisashi Midoriya first to even get to Izuku Midoriya. Gran Torino stated with him having a slight glare at the Yagas. He was still quite a bit pissed about Izuku's past mental state that they caused. Grandpa, we want to try and to reconnect with Izuku. Please tell us where we can find him. Izumi asked. Gran Torino just shook his head. It's easy to find where he's at. He's in the Titan's Tower. However, you won't even get close to him before the guards would kill you. You all are not exactly welcomed in that building. Just saying the word Yagi had the guards on guard with their hands on their guns. Gran Torino said. Also, remember this right now. You don't get to force Izuku to reconnect. If he wants to reconnect, that is 100% up to him and not you. Also, don't call him brother or son since he isn't and hasn't been since he was 4 years old. Gran Torino said before walking off. Soon the Yagas and Bakugos got up and went to their rooms for the night. The other students were just sitting downstairs and talked for a bit more. Guys, I got an idea. What if we try to help the Yagas and Bakugos reconnect with Izuku? Stated Uraraka, who has become close friends with Izumi Yagi. Some were hesitant to get into the situation while others were supportive. They agreed to try and get Izuku to be alone with the others when they had the chance or to start conversations that would lead them to talk. Time skip. Third POV. It was about another week before the first training session with Featherless was scheduled to happen. Gran Torino had stopped by the Titan Tower and had talked with Izuku, Hisashi, and the other boys. He even talked to the other boys' parents and created connections with them as well. It was early morning and you could find Gran Torino in the kitchen with Hisashi enjoying some breakfast that Izuku had cooked. Thanks for cooking for my grandson. Those fools back there are horrible cooks, Gran Torino said as he started to eat his favorite dessert taiyaki. That isn't a damn breakfast, thought everyone, but they wouldn't say it out loud. Soon, it was time to leave for the school since the Featherless team would be helping the UA students in a quirk control class today to try and bring new ideas out for their quirks. The boys and Gran Torino arrived on campus and walked into the building. After about 5 minutes, they arrived at the joint classroom that both Class 3A and 3B would be in today. Most of the time, the students are following the FHAE students around, but on certain days, they have joint classes with just their UA students that they train on. Good morning to you, Featherless, stated Kronos, who was in charge of these joint session days. Featherless was happy to see their former teacher. Hey Kronos, it's been a while. Sorry, we didn't get to talk the last time we were here, Izuku said. Soon the students from UA came into the classroom and sat down. Today you will be learning quirk control. The idea for this class is to come up with new ways to use your quirk, adapt it to new situations, find weaknesses you have, and overcome them. Any questions? Izuku asked. One person had asked what they wanted to be called, and Izuku just stated for them to call them their hero names. After about 5 more minutes, the team lead the students out to the stadium. We're going to use the tournament stadium today since it had enough space for both classes to spread out and train. As such, get to work on trying to think of new methods to use your quirks, weaknesses, or ways to adapt your quirks to situations. If you need advice, just ask one of the teachers and we will try to help you come up with ideas, Atlas stated as the students broke up into areas of the place. Izuku saw a few students he was interested in talking to about their quirks. One was a Yui Kodai and Momoge Urazu. He thought Kodai wasn't using her quirk to the best since based on her outfit that he saw, she doesn't use any support gear. Why doesn't she shrink things beforehand? From what I've read, her quirk is an on and off switch for anything she has touched, meaning she should be able to shrink stuff beforehand and then turn it off later without extra work via her quirk to keep things already shrunk, thought Izuku. The other student, Izuku, wanted to see if she could create things from one spot and shift her fat reserves to that one spot when she needed them. It would cut down on the exposed skin, and he also wanted to know why she isn't using a DNA-infused suit so she would just create through the outfit. Kodai, come here, Izuku called out to her. She was shocked but walked over. Yes, Atlas, she asked. Please correct my understanding if I'm wrong. But you can shrink things beforehand and it doesn't drain you to keep them small, correct? Izuku asked. She confirmed this was the case. Why don't you shrink things like needles, knives, marbles, or other things that you could stock up on and have them shrunken beforehand to use? Then in battle, instead of using your surroundings, because sometimes there won't always be stuff, you then could throw your already shrunk items like marbles and make it larger as you throw it, or a knife to cause more damage, or a needle. Izuku asked. Kodai was a bit stunned because why the hell didn't she think of such a simple battle method? She could shrink so many tools and keep them on her to fight with later. Thank you for the idea. I think I need to talk to the support department to make some changes to my suit later. Thanks, she said as she ran away to go back to training with the idea in her mind. Soon Izuku called Yaoyorozu over as well. Yaoyorozu, have you ever tried moving fat reserves from one section of your body to the other? This would decrease the amount of skin you need to have exposed. Izuku asked, and she was shocked since she never thought of trying that. Soon, with some guidance from a biology teacher on staff, they were able to figure it out. It seems I can. It's slow at the moment, but I can do it, she said. Good. Train that since it could prove useful in the future. I also have another question. Have you ever tried DNA-infused outfits so you don't have to have any skin exposed? Izuku asked. She was confused about what Izuku was talking about. What do you mean by a DNA-infused suit? Those exist, she asked. Izuku just looked done. Eraserhead, get over here. Izuku shouted, a bit annoyed. Soon he came over and asked what was wrong since Izuku had sounded annoyed. Eraserhead was worried his student did something. Please tell me why Yue never considered attempting her suit as a DNA-infused one. Izuku asked, and Eraserhead just stood there silent and confused. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? Izuku asked, a bit annoyed at Yue's lack of understanding. A DNA-infused suit is like how Lemillions used to work with his previous quirk before it mutated into whatever he has now. Izuku knew full well what it was. This would allow your student to go without any exposed skin and allow her to create even through the suit since it would have her DNA in it. Less skin exposed means more protection from getting killed. How do you not know that it was since one of Yue's students have used it? Izuku asked with a slightly annoyed tone. Whatever. Yaoyorozu, after training is over, go to the support department and request a DNA-infused suit to be made. Tell them I sent you over because I want to see if your quirk can work with it. Have them cover all exposed spots your current suit provides and we will see if it works, Izuku said while dismissing them both. The other team members were working with a few other students and providing them ideas as well. Then someone called for Izuku. It was the girl with the zero-gravity quirk, Uraraka. However, Izuku thought that the quirk name was wrong since things floated up. If it had zero gravity, Tai would stay where it was unless the girl moved it up herself. He walked over but found Izumi Yagi with the girl as well. We were wondering if you had any ideas for our quirks, she asked. Ideally, Vector would likely be better since he can do similar things with his quirk. However, for yours, I think zero gravity is wrong. You are neglecting gravity but also manipulating it since things float. You should experiment with trying to reverse the process and apply gravity to something since I think you could manipulate gravity itself and not just remove it. For Yagi, I think you should learn some combat methods with knives or weapons that are small that you can control with your quirk quickly. I suggest learning a bit from watching how Vector fights since he does use a form of your quirk sometimes for combat, Izuku said before he walked off towards the next students. Soon the training came to an end and people were given things to think about with their quirks. The Yagas and Bakugos attempted to talk to Izuku throughout the entire lesson by asking questions. Izuku would provide direct answers to what they needed and then would walk away if they didn't have anything more to ask. He refused to go into deeper conversations with them. Good day of training, everyone. I suggest following up on any suggestions you were given by us and see if they work out. You're free to go back to your dorms since this was the last class for the day, Izuku said. Soon he started to walk away when Inko walked over to him. Son, would you like to? But she was cut off by Luke and Kyle coming up and grabbing Izuku by his waist and saying, Izu, we have our date tonight. You ready? They both said at the same time and pulled Izuku away. After they got a bit away, Izuku asked them what date they were talking about. Oh, we just wanted to get you away from her since we could feel your emotions spiking. Though since it's Friday, we do want to take you out on a date though, Luke said as Kyle and he nuzzled into Izuku's neck and licked their old bite marks. Soon they separated from Seth and Leon, who were also planning their own date. Izuku and his fiancée arrived at a theater in Berlin to watch a play. Luke and Kyle had reserved a private booth so they wouldn't have to deal with other people bugging them since they get asked for signatures a lot. The show lasted for about 2 hours before the boys took Izuku to dinner and had reserved a private room. Soon the night came to an end and the boys headed up. They found Gran Torino drinking wine with each other and the other parents. Leon and Seth had arrived a few minutes after they came in as well. Well, didn't you just become friends quickly with all of our parents, Grandpa? Izuku asked. Everyone turned around and Gran Torino just said, oh. And I'm sure your date went amazing as well, didn't it? Gran Torino teased. This just caused Izuku to blush and soon the boys just sat down with the parents and enjoyed some talking for the night. Chapter 40, Tension and Sports Festival. Third POV. Izuku and the boys all woke up earlier in the day since today would be the sports festival at FHAE. The boys wanted to scout and see if there was anyone in the third years that they thought might be interesting to take in the agency once they graduate, or if there was anyone from second or first years that would be good for a work study. Izuku did remember about the puppet kid that should be a second year now and had brought it up to the team. He would make a good individual hero for our agency. He could also act as a supplement for the team with his puppets as well. We should keep our eyes on him. I did know that he was planning to be an individual hero and not on a team, since he liked working alone for the most part but was always willing to work with others when it was needed to complete a mission, Luke stated. As such, it was decided that they would keep an eye on the puppet master. The group soon arrived at the school, and the team went and looked over the FHAE students. They weren't that interested in the UA students that much, since they would be returning to Japan after this year is over, and none of them really wanted to deal with any of them since they weren't really students of FHAE. Soon the team arrived inside the stadium. The stadium had a private sitting area that was above the entrance gates for contestants. The staff from UA and FHAE were all sitting in this area, and the principal had invited Featherless to sit in that area this year since they were here scouting. "Hello, Featherless," called out the principal, which got everyone's attention. "Hello, Principal Vincent. Thanks for letting us sit up here," Izuku stated. "I saw your forms for work studies and internships. I take it you have an eye on some students this year that you might take under your agency," Vincent asked, which made all of the room listen, and since it would be the first time their agency took anyone on since it was recently open. "Indeed, we have our eye on someone already, but we'll wait to see how they do during this. We also want to see how anyone else does," Luke responded. Soon they all sat down and waited for the event to start. Eraserhead came over and apologized since he had failed to recognize such an opportunity to help his student all these years when it was right in front of him. "It's okay, the suit type isn't that commonly known. I just thought UA would have known since one of their former students had used it before," Izuku told him. Soon they went back to the quiet conversations between people. Izuku noticed that the Yagas kept glancing in his direction. Gran Torino just got up and walked over to a seat near Izuku and sat down. "Sup, brat? Who do you think will take it this year?" he asked Izuku. I don't really know any of the current first years, so I don't know. I think the person who won last year would have a good chance," Izuku stated. The Yagas were surprised at how easy Gran Torino had started talking to Izuku and wished they could do that as well. Soon the students were called out to the field. They had more students than normal this year since the UA students were at the school, but it didn't matter. "I'm betting a lot of the UA students will fall out in the first round," Leon said, and this shocked the UA staff. "I'm not foolish enough to bet against that," Seth said. The UA teachers felt a bit annoyed, except Gran Torino, who has spent time in other classes seeing them work. He knew that the UA kids would have a hard time. The first round was called, and it was going to be another point king system this year. Anyone that loses all of their points was out, and whoever had the most for the top 50 by the time was called or people were out would move to the next round. "Let us start this round on the count of 3, stated the announcer, and after the count, they set off. A lot of people were dropping like flies, and already a quarter of the UA students were out. Some students from FHAE even teamed up and took some UA students out, which they looked like they wanted to complain about it not being fair but kept their mouths shut, unlike All Might. "Isn't this meant to be an individual match?" he asked. "Indeed, however, there isn't a rule against teaming up. In the hero world, villains don't play by rules or fairness, so why should heroes play fair and not team up against their enemy?" Izuku said bluntly. Flag King looked like he wanted to comment back but kept his mouth shut. The tension in the booth area could be felt between the Featherless team and the Yagas and UA staff. After about 30 minutes, the round was called. There was only a handful of UA students left. The Bakugo twins, Izumi Yagi, Yaoyorozu, Todoroki, and Monoma. "I wish someone would bet with me, but no one ever does," pouted Leon. Seth just rubbed his back and consoled him. Now, you will find someone stupid enough to bet with you one day," Seth said. The UA staff was stunned. The FHAE students are strong. A lot of younger years and non-hero students took places while UA students got dropped out quick, stated Lemillion. Izuku never knew how to feel about Lemillion. He knew that he had OFA, but he also knew that he had another quirk before the raid that Izuku read about where his quirk changed. Seems a quirk kid who lost his quirk was more worthy in your eyes, All Might, than a quirkless kid. Izuku thought, a bit annoyed. He knew that OFA was far weaker than he was, and he would never take OFA, but Izuku still felt a bit of a pit inside himself when he thought about how his bastard of a biological father was quirkless and then turned on Izuku. Luke and Seth just gave Izuku a tail, which helped ground him out of his thoughts and past. So that's what Hisashi meant when he said at random. "I saw it before, but it's clearer now that I know," thought Gran Torino. He had a guess that Izuku had misgivings about Lemillion and couldn't really blame Izuku over it. Of course, the UA students got dropped out quickly. Overall, compared to FHAE students, they are weaker, Izuku said without a care in the world. The UA staff was stunned at this comment. They didn't know what to think. Their entire school just got bashed, and their top students called weak compared to people younger than them. How could you say that? They are very strong heroes. All Might asked a bit defensively of his students. Izuku just didn't care how All Might felt. Overall, they are strong for Japan, yes. On the world stage, they are weaker. People in other countries have to deal with far stronger villains and threats. As such, it's their job to grow stronger and protect those that they care about or their loved ones, and they will die. In Europe, we have villains that can kill you All Might without much problem, Izuku stated. The UA staff was shocked at Izuku's claim that All Might could get killed easily by some villains here in Europe. They wanted to know more about this claim. I'm assuming you're talking about that villain you and your team had to fight during your work study. Juggernaut, wasn't it? Principal Vincent asked, and Izuku confirmed, and then Vincent said that man was indeed powerful and could have taken you All Might in your prime. Principal Vincent said. The UA staff was silent with shock. They mainly focused on problems in Japan and didn't look out of the country much unless big things happen. How didn't that hit the news? Someone that is able to fight All Might would have caused a lot of destruction when you took him down. Green Tornado asked. It didn't cause any damage since and went unnoticed by most people. It was a large-scale raid by heroes on Juggernaut's group. We found him underground where I held him off by just grabbing him in holds until my team finished the other villains. At that point, we were able to take him down with sleeping drugs that Vector had injected into him during my fight with him. Soon, we got him down on the ground and we got him into cuffs and ended the fight with no real damage caused, Izuku stated. Izuku never turned his head the entire time he talked. He kept his eyes on the tournament that was going on and more importantly kept his eyes on the puppet master, Puppeteer. Soon, the Puppeteer was back up for his next fight and it was against Izumi Yagi. Only Izumi remained from UA and it was only halfway through the tournament rounds. Izuku was overall disappointed in the overall strength of UA's third years. They wouldn't do that great overall against heroes or villains in Europe or on the international stage. They would grow to a decent level once the year of training is over, but they had let their guard down too much against younger students. Overall, the UA students compared to the middle of the pack but allowed their egos to do them in. Who do you think will win, Atlas? Asked Lemillion. Puppeteer will win, Izuku stated without saying anything else. The UA staff thought it was just because Izumi was his sister and the bad blood, but they were proven wrong soon. The announcer called for the match to start and Izumi attempted to end the fight quickly by lifting Puppeteer out of the ring. However, he wasn't moving. Did he incorporate his puppets into his outfit itself? Izuku thought as he noticed some wood-looking material on his shoes and other parts of his outfit. Go my puppets and claim me another one, yelled Puppeteer. Izumi just turned her quirk onto the puppets and ripped some of them apart as they came towards her or dodged the others. She would break part of the ground out and send rubble at some puppets as well. However, she did what the kid from the previous sports festival did to Puppeteer and turned her back on a larger puppet. Soon a puppet came out and stabbed her with a thin-looking part of the puppet and then jumped away before Izumi could destroy it. Yagi has lost the round, Izuku stated without any emotions in his voice. How it didn't seem to do much to her, asked All Might in a worried tone. That puppet had poison on its tip, meaning she will drop soon. Puppeteer only has to wait her out now, Izuku said. Some of the UA staff asked how the poison was allowed since it wasn't the kid's quirk. Students can bring in anything they create themselves if it directly ties to their quirk. The Puppeteer creates puppets out of wood and then controls them. He just adds the poison to the puppet and it counts as a part of the puppet and is directly tied to his quirk. As such, it's allowed, stated the principal. After about 4 minutes of just dodging, Izumi soon just fell asleep onto the ground. The match was called and she was moved to the medical ward. The Yagas went to see how she was doing. The matches kept going on and the Puppeteer hero won the festival once again for the second time in a row. The stadium was clapping loudly. Izuku and the team knew they wanted to invite him to join the agency for a work study. The team followed the staff and principal to where all the students would be located at. They could see everyone here, even the UA students. Hey, Puppeteer, I see you won once again, Izuku said while walking in. Puppeteer looked over and lit up when he saw his mentors from his first year training here. Atlas, Tiger, Void, Vector, Storm. It's good to see you all again. Did you all watch the fight? He asked with some excitement. Ever since the training in his first year, he had always looked up to the Featherless team due to their help. Indeed we did. We also came to offer you something, Luke said. Seth then pulled a paper out of his jacket and handed it to Puppeteer. You will get other offers, but we wanted to extend ours as well. We would like you to come to join our agency for a work study, and depending on how that goes, we want you to join our agency as an individual hero once you graduate and have your full license, Leon stated. Izuku then spoke up. You don't have to give an answer. Look over your, but he was cut off. Of course I want to join you guys. I always looked up to you guys in your agency. I don't even have to look at the other offers, Puppeteer stated. Izuku and the guys just laughed at this. Then we will see you starting next week for work studies, and it will keep going until you graduate, Izuku stated. They talked for a bit more before walking away. The principal then called for everyone's attention and talked about some things before letting everyone go. Izuku and the team waited until the students left before attempting to leave. However, it seems that fate wasn't on their side. Izuku, would you be willing to sit down and talk with us? We would just like a chance to talk. asked Izumi. Izuku just froze. He turned around slightly and just bluntly said no. Izumi and the Yagas had some tears in their eyes at his outright bluntness. The UA students that were still around heard this, and Uraraka decided to open her mouth and make a comment. Come on, Atlas. They have changed and they deserve the opportunity to reconnect with you, and you just won't give them a chance to show you they have changed for the better. They are your family after all, Uraraka said with her arms crossed, looking a bit annoyed at Izuku's bluntness in rejecting his family. Some of the students were trying to get her to shut up, but they were too late. Even Gran Torino and Principal Vincent knew that she just screwed up. Izuku turned around annoyed and felt the rage inside him that someone dared to call them his family. Let me make something perfectly clear, you naive fool that seems to not know how the world works. They've changed. Good for them. I don't care. It's my life that they want in, and I don't want to let them in currently. They had years to change and notice the shit they did to me, but they never did until I already left. Also, never call them my family again, because they aren't. My family is Hisashi Midoriya, Sorahiko Torino, and my fiancés, and my two best friends Leon and Seth. Those bastards standing behind me right now are not my family, and you better get that damn thought out of your head now. They don't get to have a chance at reconnecting if I don't want to. They are the abusers and I was their victim, not the other way around. You don't get to tell the victim of a crime that their attacker to abuser had the right to do jack shit. Do you understand me? Izuku said as he yelled the last part right into her face while looking at her with pure rage. He hated the fact that this outside party thought she had any right to get involved in this matter. Luke and Kyle just wrapped their tails around Izuku quickly, and Seth and Leon grabbed onto them as Kyle activated his shadow traveling and got them the hell out of there. Everyone was dead silent until Gran Torino spoke up. You stupid girl. How did you even make it to the third-year hero class is now beyond me. You likely ruined any chance that the Yagas and Bakugos had at reconnecting with him now. You don't understand anything about what they truly did to him. They don't even truly understand the effects they had on him. Why did you think as a third party that you had any right to get involved in this matter when even All Might's adoptive father and Izuku's grandfather knew that they had no right to reconnect with Izuku? It was solely Izuku's decision to reconnect, and no one had the right to force him to do that. He was right in his wording about abusers and their victims, because that is what it is. The Yagas and the Bakugos are the abusers, and Izuku is the victim who has to be in the same area as them. That isn't easy to do, you stupid girl, Gran Torino said, because he was pissed that she had set off his grandson to that level. Gran Torino just turned around and exited the door since he needed to go see how his grandson was doing, and he pulled his cell phone out and called Hisashi to warn him. Hello, Hisashi answered. Hisashi, get to Izuku. Some idiot girl from UA had set him off about the Yagas and Bakugos, and Izuku blew up due to his emotion. I'm on my way to Titan Tower, since I'm betting that's where Kyle is taking them all via his shadow traveling. Gran Torino said as Hisashi thanked him and went upstairs to be ready for their arrival. Chapter 42, AFO in Love vs. Atlas and Featherless. 3RD POV. Oh, this is going to be fun, Izuku said with a smirk on his face. What, is what everyone thought. Atlas, what are you talking about? This is the villain known as AFO, and he is a big threat. All Might yelled out. The Million and All Might then charged at AFO, but were both sent flying back due to a large shockwave from AFO with his new enlarged arm. Now AFO, if Atlas wants to fight, then let him fight, AFO stated. Why, thank you. How noble of you, Atlas stated. Atlas then looked at his team and told them a general plan. Tiger work on the creatures. Vector work on the villain's nose as Mr. Compress and Spinner. Void works on Twice and Toga. Storm work on Dabai while helping the others. I will help where I can, but I will fight AFO and stall him. I'll defeat him if I can get an attack in that can put him down, but with all of his quirks, he won't go easily. So when you are done, help each other and work your way up to me. Okay, Atlas asked his team, and they agreed. They knew this fight would be a tough one if AFO could interfere in the other battles. As such, they got to work. Let's do this, they all yelled out as Atlas powered up to 400% and charged it all for one. Everyone was shocked that the Featherless team just charged, and the fact that Atlas just disappeared. Then they heard a loud bang as they saw Atlas had attacked AFO. Then AFO went flying back into the mountain behind the school area. Bang! Everyone heard the bang and saw the shockwave as AFO had connected with the mountain. Soon, Atlas went flying into the air and waited for AFO to attack. He didn't want to get too far away from his team in the event they needed to act or he needed to act. The team was dealing with their opponents. Tiger had just fully transformed and enhanced his claws with the air and was ripping into the Nomus. He was making quick work of them since they all didn't have the regeneration quirks as some did. Those were a bit more annoying, and Tiger threw them into the distance to deal with them last. Vector used his quirk to control his knives at a fast speed that Mr. Compress couldn't grab them all into his quirk. As such, he got hit a few times by the knives, which were laced with sleeping drugs. Spinner was doing a better job at dotting everything, and his harder skin made getting him with the knives harder. As such, he would have to be dealt with closer to the end when Mr. Compress was dealt with. Void was working on Twice and Toga. Twice was making clones of Toga and himself left and right. Void fully transformed and was tearing through the clones while using his tails to smash them into the ground. He also used his shadow travel to jump through the army of clones and tear through them. He also sent void balls out from his tail every time he came out of the shadows. Storm was fighting Dabai, and he knew this fight would be troublesome due to Dabai's quirk. It was a standstill for the most part, and Storm needed to find a weakness to attack. AFO had already arrived back and was pissed that he got sent back like that. You said you could go much stronger than All Might if in a death fight. Well, guess what? This is a death fight, Izuku stated. Soon, they were going blow for blow. Izuku was slowly increasing his strength since he knew that his energy wasn't limitless at the levels he was going in. The absorption ability of his has gotten good to keep up with his fighting over the years, but once he enters the higher percent that he normally doesn't use, then his consumption outdoes his absorption. As such, the fight between AFO and Atlas was currently at a standstill of large blows going between them. Atlas needed to figure out a game plan since he wouldn't win a slugfest. Third POV. All Might and the others were just watching the Featherless team fight against AFO and the LOV. Why did they go in by themselves? This isn't an easy enemy, All Might said. Principal Vincent just looked at All Might as if he was crazy. All Might, you forget Atlas and the Featherless team has faced opponents that could defeat you before. This isn't any different from any other mission for them. If you want to help out, then keep the UA students and others safe from any attacks, Vincent stated. Lemillion looked like he wanted to get involved but didn't know what to do. All Might, could you authorize me to get involved in the fight? Lemillion asked. Vincent just rejected this right away. No, you can't get involved. Featherless is a team that can act and defend each other from a distance, and you getting involved would ruin their flow and their control of the battle. It may not appear like they have control, but trust me, they do, Vincent stated in a warning tone at All Might and Lemillion. The slugfest between Atlas and AFO kept going on. Soon, Atlas figured out a general plan in his mind. For a split second, Atlas charged up past 400% and up to 600% and landed a hit onto AFO's arm, which sent him reeling back in surprise at the sudden difference in strength. At that moment, Atlas created his whip and grabbed AFO with it. As Atlas started to swing AFO around, he let go towards the mountain and then pulled out his bow and arrow. Let's see if you can take this hit, Atlas stated as he let the arrow go flying. It had a larger charge into it at a 1000% power output. AFO saw the arrow coming and didn't think anything of it. Big mistake. The arrow landed and blew up. Everyone's attention got taken by the explosion. Well, almost everyone's. The Featherless team has seen this explosion before since they have trained with Izuku, and they used the villain's lack of attention to turn the tide of the battle. Compress slowed down enough due to the drugs and was knocked out by Vector. Vector also sent all of his blades directly into Spinner at a quick speed. It had enough speed and force to break into his scales and dig into his skin. Yelled out Spinner, which broke everyone's train of thought of the explosion, but it was too late. The Featherless team had already made their move. Void has dealt with over 90% of the clones before Twice and Toga realized he was close to them and they couldn't make enough clones or do enough attacks to slow Void down in his attacks. His tails were flying through clones looking for the real bodies. Storm used the moment in Dabai's lack of attention and got up close and personal with Dabai. He kicked Dabai in the stomach and then shocked him with lightning bolts, which knocked him down and out of the fight. He grabbed Dabai with a tail and threw him to the school staff so they could cuff him. Storm then moved to Vector's location and helped him finish Spinner off before Storm dragged them both off to the staff. With 3 villains out, Storm went to help Void while Vector went to help Tiger deal with the remaining Nomas. During all of this, Shorturl.at hadn't made a move at all. Izuku had planned to deal with Shigaraki whenever he attempted to make a move since he didn't want anyone to get in close to fight him due to his decay quirk. Shigaraki just looked around before he decided to make a move. He started to fly. What? Everyone thought as Izuku moved out of his range since he didn't know what his quirks were now nor what attacks he could do. Shigaraki moved over to the mountain where his master was and landed near AFO body, which had large burns on it. AFO survived the attack but was badly damaged. The mask that kept him breathing had broken due to the destructive blast from that arrow. Atlas quickly helped the others finish their enemies since he had a bad feeling. All of the villains were taken care of and given to the staff of the school. The last of the Namus were also killed off. Everyone was waiting for what would happen with AFO and Shigaraki. Soon, Atlas saw Shigaraki kill AFO. Why did he kill his owner master? Atlas asked the question that everyone was wondering. Soon, though, they would find out the why. Chapter 43, AFO 2.0 vs. Featherless. Third POV. Everyone had just watched as Shigaraki had just killed AFO. They were wondering what just happened, and the bad feeling Izuku just had kept getting worse. He received a text message that everyone in the 2 miles near him has been cleared out. Even the school has been cleared out. Izuku just didn't like the feeling he had. As such, he texted his father to keep getting people away from his location and get them further and not to stop until the battle was won. Soon his phone started to ring. Everyone looked at him as he answered it like he was crazy. "Hey, Dad," Izuku said. "Yes, I know that I'm asking you to clear everyone in the next 10 miles more or less out of here. I know, Dad, I love you. Just in case I don't come back, I just want you to know I love you," Izuku said as he hanged up his phone suddenly. He turned to Principal Vincent and told him to take the villains and everyone else and leave. They were confused about why, since there was only Shigaraki left. "Just leave. You might need to prepare the top 10 for a fight for their lives and call in the top 10 from all other EU countries," Izuku said as he felt something was really bad and the feeling was only getting worse. Izuku looked at his team and they knew as well what they were feeling. They had the same guess. Shigaraki likely has AFO and will be unpredictable and with his decay quirk deadly at a touch, thought the entire team. "Izumi, seems you won't get the chance to reconnect after all. I'm sorry. Now get out of here with the UA students and staff. You don't need to die young," Izuku said with a sad smile on his face. Everyone was still confused about what he was talking about. "Atlas, what are you talking about? Why are you talking like you were about to die?" Vincent asked worriedly. "Izuku, what are you thinking?" Inko asked, and All Might just looked worried. He screwed up a father and here was his son now talking about dying. If my assumption is correct, the reason AFO was killed is that he is no longer needed. AFO passed the quirk AFO to Shigaraki and he now has all of the quirks and his decay quirk, meaning he is unpredictable and deadly at a touch, Izuku said. This information scared everyone. "I'll fight him then. I still have strength," All Might said. "No, I'm far stronger than you are and I don't even think I will walk away from this, nor will my team," Izuku said. After them trying to convince Featherless different, Izuku and the team were ready. They had a general plan in mind and were ready to act. "Luke, Kyle," Izuku said as he leaned up to them and gave them both a deep kiss in front of everyone. "I love you too. Hope to see you both at the end of this," Izuku said as he hugged him and then held their hands. They were all ready and the others were running away. The Yagas felt horrible and Lemillion wanted to stay and help, but he wasn't being allowed to. Soon the battle started. Tiger threw up enough wind and started tornadoes that only grew in strength and had them go into the woods towards Shigaraki. Storm transformed into lightning and started to summon lighting out of the clouds above. Void jumped into the shadows and was traveling through the shadows to get close and look for a chance to attack. Vector and Atlas both went into the air and got ready. Shigaraki noticed that they were ready and sent a large blast towards them. It did some damage to the forest area, but the tornadoes destroyed most of the destructive force by pulling the force into the tornado itself. Shigaraki decided to charge at Atlas and Vector and try to decay them. Atlas just pulled the bow and arrow and took a shot which Shigaraki dodged. The arrow hit the ground and it exploded. Vector sent blades when Shigaraki dodged and attempted to hit him. Only one blade hit and got some drugs into him. It was going to be a long battle. Shigaraki was getting annoyed at the attacks that were coming his way. He kept dodging and then slammed his hands on the ground and started to decay everything. Izuku sent his whip out and pulled him off the ground to stop him. Storm sent large blasts of air at Shigaraki and kept him from landing again. Void would appear out of the shadows and send large void balls at him as well. Storm would channel some lighting and attack with his lighting balls and keep transforming into lighting and flying through the air to avoid attacks. Izumi Puff. Everyone ran after. We couldn't convince Izuku to let us help. As we were getting far away, we were picked up by Titan trucks. We got in and we found Hisashi Midoriya. He didn't even look at us as he was commanding his men. "Get everyone out of the damn 10-mile radius. Force them if you need to. The battle is going to be destructive and deadly," he yelled. Soon we felt shock waves go off and looked out the windows. We saw large tornadoes, lighting, large blasts from Izuku's arrows. Everything they could throw at Shigaraki, they were doing it. We could also see the land start to fall apart as decay started to go through the land until we saw an energy whip throw Shigaraki into the air. It was chaos. It was an entire hour later before we could tell that the chaos and fighting came to an end. There was a large explosion that looked like a miniature sun that went off before they were met with silence. Hisashi Midoriya called in a helicopter and jumped in with some medical staff. There were more helicopters that came as well. "Can we come, please?" I asked him. He looked at me in the eyes and sighed. "Fine, get on now," he yelled, and my parents, Gran Torino, and I got into the helicopter. About 5 minutes later we arrived on site and the entire mountain area was on fire and destroyed. One of the entire mountains was gone. Third Path. The battle was long and tiresome. The boys were bloodied and tired. They had finally stopped Shigaraki as Izuku drove his hand through his heart. Shigaraki lost when he attempted to take Izuku's quirk and he had used the last resort attack that he had created. It was when he was being pushed to go all out on a 100% bet. He would overdrive his quirk and release everything outside of himself for the most part and create a miniature sun around himself, destroying everything he could with him. The team jumped into Void's shadow and got out of range, but they were still bloodied from the previous fighting. Izuku had taken the chance as Shigaraki was starting to regenerate from the attack and drove his hand into his chest with some of the leftover energy. Izuku's body, though, was devastated. He had a lot of burns across his skin. His body was resistant and couldn't get hurt by his own attacks for the most part, but this last resort attack was something that could hurt him. Soon the team arrived and finished Shigaraki off. They refused to take the chance of him coming back to life and decided to destroy his body 100%. Vector used his quirk and tore the body atom by atom and left nothing to be recovered. They then turned to Izuku, who was the worst of them all. They knew they needed to get him to Titan's tower and into the energy chamber so he could absorb energy and heal himself. Soon they saw helicopters arrive and Hisashi come out with the Yagis. "We need to get him to the energy chamber now," yelled Luke. Soon the medics carried him into the helicopter and the Yagas were horrified at the featherless state. It was about 10 minutes before they arrived at the Titan Tower. Soon they arrived in the Titan Tower and they all went down to the energy reactor and placed Izuku inside it. The Yagas were confused about what was happening, and then they saw the machine turned on and blast Izuku with energy. "What's going on?" All Might and Green Tornado asked. "This is the energy reactor. My son's quirk can absorb energy from the sun or via this method. Right now we need to pump him with energy so he can heal himself or he will die," Hisashi stated. Soon the energy all followed around Izuku and started to go into him. They could see some of the wounds heal, and it took around 30 minutes for all of the wounds to heal. After about another 10 minutes, Hisashi turned the machine off and the medics got Izuku into the medical bay. "Doctor, what can you tell me about my son's condition?" Hisashi asked, not caring the Yagas was there. "Well, the good news is that he will live. The bad news is we don't know when he will wake up. He entered quirk exhaustion. That last move of his was his last resort based on featherless reports. It was meant to kill everything and anything in the range," the doctor stated. They could only wait now for Izuku to wake up. Time skip. The reports about the battle had spread like wildfire across the world. Everyone was amazed and shocked at the level of the battle that happened and the fact that Featherless had won and limited the destruction to the back mountains behind the FHAE school. Only little damage was done to the school since they kept the enemy contained to the sky. Everyone wanted to know the condition of Atlas, and it had already been 4 weeks since he was in a coma. It was already several weeks into the second semester and no one knew when he would wake up. Hisashi had warmed up to the Yagas over the 4 weeks but warned them that their position in Izuku's life was Izuku's alone to decide. If Izuku wanted them as a father and mother or just as family friends, it was all up to Izuku. It was another week before Luke and Kyle felt something via their bond. The Yagas, Bakugos, and the family was at Hisashi's place eating dinner. He had invited them over every few days. Luke and Kyle shot up out of their seats and went to the elevator without even talking. Hisashi followed them since they had a bond with Izuku, and if they were moving then it meant something with Izuku. "Get in the elevator now," he yelled while waiting for them. The boys were already downstairs since they had taken the first elevator. Soon everyone else arrived and found the boys with Izuku, who was awake. Hisashi just darted over to Izuku and hugged him. "Don't scare me like that again," he yelled out. Izuku just apologized and hugged back. Izuku looked over and saw the Yagas and Bakugos. He motioned them to come over. "I'm letting you know now. I'm going to let you back in my life, but the position which you have will be depending on how I feel. You need to understand that I see Hisashi as my father and I can't really see anyone else like that. I might see someone else as another father figure or mother figure, but he will always be my true father. Do you understand?" Izuku asked and they agreed. "I understand, Izuku. We screwed up our chance to raise you as a son. We are willing to accept any position in your life that you will allow us," All Might said with tears down his face. He knew that he had lost his little boy years ago and found a young man that he had to get to know again. Chapter 44. Last semester, graduation, family, time skip. Third POV. Izuku had to do some recovering from his battle wounds. His body was really sore from all the healing and damage and had to redo some training since he had slept so long. The new rankings came out and the team found themselves in the top 5 spots of Germany, the top 5 spots of the EU, and had broken into the top 20 spots of the world ranking. The last semester had already started when Izuku had woken up and he was catching up on the events. One of the things that Izuku wanted to happen was that he demanded Luke and Kyle marry him the moment he could walk by himself so he could walk down the aisle. They agreed with it right away, and the wedding was amazing but private. Izuku did invite the Yagas and all of the people from UA. He also invited a lot of the staff from FHAE and several people like Puppeteer who they were working with still. It was about 2 weeks until the end of the semester when the full hero exams were being held. The Featherless had recommended their work-study Puppeteer to be allowed to take the exam early and it was approved. As such, he had taken the exam with the third years. If he passed, he would only have to attend educational classes, but could also do full-time hero work while doing his classes. The hero exam was the standard exam. Overall, everyone had passed and so did Puppeteer. The Featherless announced his passing and had hired him on full-time as an individual hero for the agency. The announcement was met with cheers that the Featherless agency had hired a new hero who they had taken under their wings. The graduation came and soon it was the day of their ceremony. Izuku and all of the Featherless team attended the graduation and congratulated the UA students and FHAE students that graduated. The UA students would have another graduation back in Japan which the Featherless had refused to go to. I'm sorry, but Japan holds too many nasty memories for me. I don't think I could hold myself together if I returned anytime soon. Meeting my past family was already hard this year, and going back to Japan would be too much for me currently, Izuku stated. The Yagas and Bakugos understood this and accepted it, though you guys are welcome to come to Germany whenever you want. If you ever come over for missions, let me know and I'll let you stay at the Titan's Tower, Izuku stated. They were all happy that he was willing to do that. Soon it was time for them to leave and return to Japan. Time skipped 2 years later. It was time for a major change in Izuku's life. 2 years had passed and Izuku had become closer to the Yagas. He had come to see Izumi as a sister again and Inko and Tashinori as parental figures. Though Izuku is still uncomfortable with calling them mom or dad still, he did forgive Izumi because she was a child when she did everything. Inko and Tashinori were both adults that should have known better, and he had explained this one day when Izumi asked why he forgave her and calls her sister and not them as mom or dad names. She accepted this and understood. Inko and Tashinori understood this quite well as well and couldn't say anything against it. They were just happy to be in his life again and visited often with Izumi. It was a few months after their last visit when Izuku figured something out. Izuku had been wanting to have a child lately and had told Luke and Kyle, who agreed since they were all 18 or older. As such, that is how they found themselves with a pregnant Izuku down in the medical bay. Congratulations, sir, you are having twins. Both are males, the doctor stated. Izuku was stunned and then broke out into happiness. Twins? I'm having twin boys. Oh my god, I'm going to be a mother, Izuku screamed out. Luke and Kyle were both frozen. They were about to be fathers. Wait, can you tell who the father is? I want to know for the future so I can ensure I give birth to kids from both Luke and Kyle, stated Izuku with a large blush which made both of the boys blush as well about them both having more children running around. The doctor had a quirk that could learn all about pregnancy and the details. As such, she looked and confirmed for Izuku the details. 1 kid belongs to each, the doctor said with a smile. Time skipped 9 months. Time passed and Izuku stayed as an active hero for as long as he could before he had to do office work. The team decided to keep patrols in Germany and around Berlin for 9 months since Izuku was expecting, and Leon had also gotten pregnant and would be giving birth a few months after Izuku. As such, it was better for the team to just stay nearby. The Yagas had returned for the birth. Green Tornado and All Might both had reduced their active hours. Lamillan had taken the #1 spot in Japan about 1 year ago, and the UA students that graduated with Izumi all were in the top 40 heroes. Izumi was the #5th hero. Lamillan had offered OFA to Izuku after the final battle, but Izuku refused since he didn't need it. The word said was, I'm far more powerful than you ever would be, Lamillan. It will take like the #11THOFA user to even stand against my powers, and that's by myself without my team. Take them into account, and not even the #13th person might be able to stand against us, Izuku said, and also Lamillan would go back to being quirkless, which Izuku refused to do to him. It was time for the birth though. Soon, Izuku was in the delivery room and was going under surgery to have them birthed via C-section since it would be safer since Izuku was a male. He could do it via his rear exit, but the bond didn't change it enough that the doctors felt safe to do it via that method. As such, the surgery lasted 2 hours before the twins were born. The cries of the babies could be heard through the medical bay. Izuku was exhausted and was holding his babies when Luke and Kyle came in. Time skip. It's been 5 years since Izuku gave birth and Leon soon after. Izuku has started to see Inko and Tashinori as more parental figures since they have been far better as grandparents. Izuku even introduced them to the kids when they were older as their grandparents. One of his kids had asked why he had multiple grandfathers from mom, and Izuku said that he and they got separated when he was younger and they found each other again later on in life. The Yagas were in tears after that day. Hasashi still was the #1 parent in Izuku's book though, and that would never change. It was also time for Izuku to take over the Titan Tower in full since he had also become the #1 world hero with his team in the other positions right below him. Izuku was happy with his life and wouldn't change anything. And with that, I'll see you all in the next series. Again, please go support the author Hinakami, who has done several fanfics which you all love. With that, be sure to aim for the stars and to drink plenty of water. Take care until next we meet.